Travis Wangizzo. We're doing an early church news today because Brother Elder Webb, whatever he is, learned how to trust in the Lord. So they're wasting the day on church news, hoping that I won't do a church news video. So we'll do a comment reply video instead. This is the second one. The first one came from a Mormon. I think there was even an ex-foe who also sent me one similar. And then now we've got a Christian. Chad Daybell, Mormon, faithful, had a near-death experience. And he had seen stuff in his dead condition in which he believed was literally true, that he stood before Jesus. Jesus told him to prepare for his coming. And so he did a speaking tour, wrote books, had a mass following. And Lori Vallow felt that his words were true. Spiritual witness feeling. It's all true. I feel it with every fiber of my cereal. And as she began to immerse herself in his words, her husband started looking worse and worse, and before you know it, boom, she lost everything. She's in prison. So what happened, as we found out, was that they began to have communications with each other, and they considered that their beliefs and feelings were true, and that everybody else was blinded, weren't able to see the truth, and we're fallen, and we're part of the zombie apocalypse. And so they justified murdering people who would not believe as they would. And as a Mormon, you should have known better, because Alma chapter 1 talks about Nehor, who enforced his beliefs with violence and murder, not just priestcraft. And so they had to cover it up. And to cover it up, they purchased wedding materials on Amazon, leaving a financial document trail. Dumbasses. And eloped and had their honeymoon out in Hawaii. And that fateful day when Daybell's residence was searched to see if they can find the children. And they did, in the backyard. Their bodies were dismembered. They were roped and taped and bagged. I thank the niece of Daybell who sent me the ribbon, the wristband. It's too small for my wrist, but it's in good ears. And we learned that there was communications as to why they did what they did to the kids. Because Vallow's DNA was found on the kids that were bound and taped. So it was both of them. They believed the kids were zombie apocalypses, and therefore needed to be murdered, because they were not going to help usher in Jesus' coming. And so, as much as I would have preferred that both of them got the death penalty, next we got Chad. So it's one thing to know that you experienced something. It's another thing to draw conclusions about what you experienced that are nowhere near reality. Not to mention a violation of the Book of Mormon as a Mormon. On October 7th, Hamas attacked Israelis. Mass deaths. From that moment on, we began to see the true nature of people around the world. Obviously, those of Islam revealed that Hamas is on their side, that they support terrorism, that all their talk previously was lies, that all those who were refugees in other countries claiming that Hamas and other terrorist militant groups were religiously abusing them as women, but as they were given asylum, refugee status in other nations, even in the United States of America, the women continued to wear the symbol of their abuse by their religion. So October 7th, yeah, it's no wonder that they supported terrorism against Israel. Islam has no claim to the land. It is a futile argument. Islam has to deny history in order to claim they are in the right. They have to lie about their history. They have to lie and revise the history of Israel. What Israel is having to be faced with is an extermination, because others who are not Islamists have exposed themselves as supporting terrorism of Islam. Whether it's because they don't know the history and don't care to know, even though there are reporters in numerous instances, government leaders in numerous instances. It is sickening that a group of people who have been victimized for thousands of years are still being victimized and are unable to have peace on this earth. That they are not welcome among their fellow man simply for being who they were. They never were militant against anybody. The mountain of Jerusalem was originally called Salem. Jerusalem means peace. They were just a peaceful hamlet there on the mountaintop. Visited one day by David Moses III during Armageddon 1, for which they then built a temple to him and a palace for him and any future descendant, and for the tributary king that would sit on the throne of Jerusalem thereafter. And then Babylon destroyed them. Persians let them go back and rebuild. Greeks then conquered them. Romans then controlled them. Constantine's Christianity then destroyed them. Islam then attacked them to destroy them. They got chased all around Europe. And everywhere they went, they were abused, denied rights as human beings. They have never been a militant group. They have never sought to destroy other people. Those people who call for their extermination are the ones who are their threat. They are the threat to all humanity. Knowing the truth of history exposes the enemy. So the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, I was born and raised into it. I was faithful, kind of forced to as a kid, because my parents were both faithful, both served missions, both hardcore. And so I get taught that Joseph Smith is our founder, that the Book of Mormon is our keystone. I read the Book of Mormon, I see the words Hebrew, I see the words Egyptian. I want to know more about it. At the Book of Abraham, there's more Egyptian. But the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints will not do anything in regards to translations, additional scriptures, or even explaining what we already have. And so I believed that it was all true. And just put it in the back of my mind as to whatever the reason was why the living prophets of Jesus denied the powers of prophet, seer, revelator, and didn't even claim translator. And I went and searched for the knowledge. Joseph Smith is true, isn't it? Book of Mormon is true, isn't it? So I shouldn't have to fear searching for the answers. I knew as a kid that a spiritual witness feeling wasn't true. It was creeping in, but it was easily dismissed back in my day because the still small voice dominated. And plus I was the top student in English grammars in grade school. I learned English good. And so I had the opportunity, because I passed up on Leanne Murdoch, to go up to Canada and get to the University of Lethbridge. And there they had science-based anthropology of the ancient Middle East, which the guidance counselor called Bible studies. And none of my credits from Rick's College for the Bible courses that I took counted, because it's a biased study. But the factual stuff that I was taught still helped me, learning the names and who was born through which wife of Jacob's. Stuff like that gave me an advantage. Prerequisites. And I began to learn through science about the Bible lands and cultures. And then the guidance counselor called me in and says, "You haven't picked a major." So, do I have to? And so she designed a dual major or dual bachelor's with a minor, and saw to it that some specific classes would be provided for me so that I could graduate, get the hell out. And so she provided Greek through Thomas O. Lambden, or not Thomas O. He was the Biblical Hebrew textbook. Thomas Robinson, who was a big part of the anthropology of the Middle East, the biblical part, which is why the confusion. And she got their geologist, Walter Emanuel Aufrecht, who studied under Thomas O. Lambden at Harvard for Biblical Hebrew. So we used his textbook for Biblical Hebrew. And because he was told it was just going to be the one class, just for me, and it was a popular one, there were a lot of kids that wanted to take it, he crammed everything he could from his knowledge into that semester. So he started off by showing Paleo-Hebrew script and some pattern matching that people were aware of but couldn't figure out how to develop it into a theory. So with my associative memory, that stayed on my mind as we would then get into Biblical Hebrew. And knowing the King Follett sermon of Joseph Smith, when we were being taught, I was going over Genesis chapter 1, trying to figure out how Joseph is correct, trying different translations, presenting them to the teacher, being told no. Finally, he had to come out and say, there is only one translation because the Jewish Masoretes from 800 to 1000 CE that made the Biblical Hebrew text forced only one translation. Thus, Joseph Smith was correct. The Biblical Hebrew text is wrong. And so I graduated. Took me 6 months to decipher Paleo-Hebrew. Joseph Smith is correct. I ran the tests using the science education that I was given. Not just from the anthropology, but I coupled it, the dual bachelor's, remember, with logical, science-based Socratic methodology for theory development, which the guidance counselors said philosophy of science. Not quite. Close. Close. It would probably be better to call it theoretical science, scientific theory, something like that. And so I'm in Utah at that point. So you have to give me some slack. It took less than 6 months. Had to get settled, had to get a job the first day I went looking. And had to get settled in with the job and getting into the basement that my parents claimed was already built for us, which wasn't. Had to stay in the living room of their Kearns apartment because the house wasn't finished, and then we find out that the basement was unfinished. My parents intended me to build it, didn't bother to tell me. Thought they would surprise me after I'm trapped down here in Utah. So that caused real damage to the marriage. And so when I deciphered Paleo-Hebrew, probably in 3 months, she left me. My kids will not learn Hebrew. She was 4 and he was 2, and you know they adore you, blah, blah, blah. Can't listen to that song anymore. Aren't they the Dixie Chicks? The Magna Girls, who no longer go by Dixie. Do you go by Dixie Dixie? I doubt you watch my channel. My mom's sister. And so yes, I show through science that Joseph Smith is correct, our founder, and already Mormons are attacking me, punishing me, hurting me, victimizing me, calling me the enemy, because it would expand beyond the first wife. The bishop, parents, siblings, ward members, singles ward, older singles, farms, Foundation for Ancient Research in Mormon Studies. They don't believe in Joseph Smith. They're the cause of no translator, turning it into a revelator to help the prophets and deceive Mormons. And F. Michael Watson, lest we forget his role in this. And then Shurtleff, because it was now entering into the government that was attacking me. Because apparently I'm not needed up in Canada for the divorce proceedings. She did it all by herself without me. So I was financially ruined. Everybody threatening me. Stop with the research. Stop trying to show that Joseph Smith is true. Stop trying to show that the Book of Mormon is true. It didn't make any sense to me. This is Joseph's church, isn't it? Book of Mormon is our keystone, isn't it? And so, when I realized that Shurtleff and my parents were conspiring to cause me harm, I filed a petition for a redress of grievances with the state of Utah. I had no idea how to do it. We didn't have Google search or anything like that. I just did what I knew from the Constitution. And the state of Utah, because it was involving the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, had me arrested as a terrorist. 3 counts for terrorizing the government. And so the 2 places where you're supposed to file a petition for a redress of grievances and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. That count got lowered after months. And so yeah, I saw Brian David Mitchell, another former Mormon who thought his spiritual witness feelings were true, obeying Brigham Young. And Curtis Allgaier, white supremacist, killed the cop while at a hospital visit, got caught at Arby's, then got married. Everybody's having fun with me. 6 years of my life gone. All the years of bullying that just escalated against me, to the point where they said, we need to remove you from society. It was supposed to be permanent. It wasn't supposed to get out. They did not want Mormons to know that Joseph Smith is true, that the Book of Mormon is true. It didn't make sense to me. I never understood what was being done to me. Why is everybody against me? Why is everybody trying to destroy me and throw away my property, destroy my research? And so I see bullies all my life. My childhood peers were white supremacist Christian nationalists. Part of the bullying that they did was to victimize the victim. They bully a person, and once the person accepts the bullying abuse, then they get escalated in attacks. To be victimized as a victim, as the bullies claim that they're now the victims and that that person is the psycho killer, that they're going to go ballistic on us. We need to be protected from them. Saw it as a kid. And so yes, the comments that I'm getting lately from a Mormon, from an ex-foe, and from a Christian are all bullying tactics to victimize me as the victim of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. All these years I've been exposing this church as the threat. And yet, everybody still to this day keeps attacking me. You can leave the church, but you can't leave it alone. I have heard that too many times to even keep track of the counting of it. And they have no clue that they're a puppet parrot for someone else who first told them that. They have no idea that they are the bullies. And the Christian one is even worse because they know that the Brighamite Church is evil, as they say, but then say that I'm the potential serial killer who's going to go ballistic. And so I need Christian psychological counseling, not the Mormon version. And this was on the video in which Danite Mormon LDS Church terrorist threat to the whole world. There you have it. Joseph Smith assassinated by the Brighamites. And then me with my mugshot. And then me with the 6-year incarceration. And then me in Gail Miller's concentration camp of hell of human trafficking. Which is why I'm now here. Because I escaped from there just in the nick of time. They too were attacking me. Victimizing me as the victim of abuse. They give priority beds to those who are victims of abuse. And yet, even though that's why I was able to get a bed, they then victimized me for having a bed. They were not wanting me to get a place to live. They were purposely keeping me there so that they can torture and punish me for being there and not getting my own place to stay. And yes, I finally got this place. I wasn't supposed to. It was an accident. They had she's not a counselor, social worker. They had the social worker pretend to help me look for a place, but she kept giving me bad housing selections on purpose, just to get me out of the shelter and giving me a false hope. And so, the one day while we were waiting for the manager of the building, who eventually came in and said, "There's never been an apartment available here for years." And as we were leaving, he then said, "Oh, wait, we do have 800 that are being built," and gave us the location, and here I am. Oops. She got fired. She failed to do her assignment to hurt me. She even coded her speech as to how she's seen abuses of people. And I tried to explain that she needed to report it. You don't just watch and let it happen. And so because she did not report it, they got her first instead to fire her. But she refused to go all the way. All of a sudden the money disappeared. She can't help me with money. And that's where the intermediary between the police department and the shelter said, "Oh yeah, well you got the money. Yeah, I can get it for you." She's now fired. So much hatred against me. And yeah, by having locked me up, there's the mugshot. You can't find the case. It's sealed. They got to protect the church. They have to seal it. But the mugshot's available for everybody to see, so therefore I'm the bad guy. I'm the threat. Exactly what bullies do. Ruin my character, ruin my reputation, ruin my name to protect the church. Protect the church from what? Joseph Smith and the Book of Mormon are true. So yeah, the title tells you all that you need to know. The Danites, the ones who destroyed and murdered Joseph Smith and his church. That's why they're attacking me. All they had to do was leave me alone. Just coddle me, say, "Oh, that's great, Travis. No, or nothing we can do about it. We're waiting for the prophet to give us instructions." That's all they had to do. There was more than enough work to occupy me for many lifetimes with just Paleo-Hebrew. So just the other day, I did a whole thing, a little paper thing on the name Simeon. Do you know how many names there are? There's still plenty for me to do. And yeah, I could have even gone into the Greeks as well. Because what I discovered was that everybody wrote their wrongly called myths from the Egyptians. And so it's not just the Bible stories that come from the Egyptian documents. the Romans, the Greeks, the Persians, the Chinese, the Babylonians, the Assyrians, the Hittites, the Canaanites. Everybody originated with the Egyptians. And so, if you don't believe it, I'll give you just a simple example of a Greek tale that I'm sure most of you have heard of because it involves puberty. The Oedipus Rex syndrome, where once a guy hits puberty, he has a crush on his mom and murders his dad. Alright, everybody knows that one? Did you know it came from the Egyptians? Guess who? David Moses the Third. His mother, Hatshepsut, was married to David Moses II, and he was just a young boy, not old enough to take the throne. And Daddy died. The Amun priesthood was concerned because there was nobody else who could fill in to maintain the dynasty. And if they couldn't maintain the dynasty, another dynasty would have to take over the ruling of Egypt, and thus the Amun priesthood wouldn't be able to practice priestcraft anymore. They'd be unemployed, have to move to Greenland. And so Hatshepsut came to the Amun priesthood and told them two stories that were literal history true about her life. First was in the premortal council in heaven. 12 were in that council, plus 13 for Heavenly Father. It's in the Egyptian documents. They knew this would happen because they have foreordination knowledge. And foreordained Hatshepsut to take over as Pharaoh on the throne of Egypt until the son, David Moses III, was old enough to take over on the throne. And so, okay, that sounds good. We feel good about that. Then she added a cherry on top and told the story of how Father Amun came from outer space to the queen's chambers, her mother's chambers, and raped her to give birth to her. Sound familiar, Mormons? Almost like Christian with the Holy Ghost. Yep, that's where it came from. And thus, she is the rightful ruler on the throne, being the daughter of Father Amun. And the Amun priesthood all bowed to her and immediately anointed her as Pharaoh. Problem solved. Mission accomplished. And so, when David Moses III was old enough, he then was coronated as Pharaoh. And since there were no sisters, the mother was required to maintain the bloodline of the Canaanites. For those of you who know your Book of Abraham, chapter 1, how did Joseph Smith know? Even DNA of the mummified bodies confirmed they're from Canaan. Zawi Hawass was furious, threatened the DNA scientists to deny their work, and revised the results as being from Africa. They wouldn't do it. He had power, not that much power. How did Joseph Smith know? And so, yes, in order to maintain the family line, mother and son had to then have children. And thus, 1,000 years later, came the Greek tale of Oedipus. Notice in the Greek, there are some differences, different names, different variations of the literal history occurrence in Egypt. This wasn't one of the wrongly called myths. But you can see by the tale of where future devolved cultures would tell their scriptures from. You know, like that Matthew guy. David Moses III. And a little vacation during Armageddon the One on the Mountain of Peace, Salem. All mankind originate from Egypt, from Southeast Asia, Southeast Africa, as they would migrate up. I would go on to find the receipt signed by every 15 of those prophets under Monson in 2008. Who signed and paid to have me removed from society, to never be heard of again. And yes, Nelson and Oakes were part of it. Not sure how much further on down. Holland, he was 1994. I'd have to check on the age and rank site, but they know who they are. They know what they did to me. They are the threat. And for people to disbelieve and deny reality, deny the truth about what actually happened to me, you know, they never bothered to learn, so I understand. But what people like this do is they incite the mob against me. These were comments on YouTube that they believed others would see. That others would go, oh, I guess he's right. Yeah, Travis must be the bad guy. Because Joseph Smith and the Book of Mormon aren't true. And it's sad that YouTube will not flag anybody anymore on my channel. In the beginning, before the church forced them to abuse me, yeah, I would have lots of flagging of people who were abusive towards me, but not anymore. YouTube is full on my enemy. The Mormon who works there, he's dead set against me. The Mormon is back, who puts a thumbs down on every single video of mine. Took a little vacation during the celebration of Brigham Young's human and sex trafficking and murder to this valley. But he's back. Back for the attack. All the church had to do was do to me what they wanted me to do to them. Expose them as frauds. And so yeah, that's where I get the claim that you tell a Mormon they are wicked and corrupt, and they will prove it to you. It's a good thing that this Christian never saw any of my videos where I talk about Constantine. You know, I'm pretty sure now that the Christians who have been following me, even ministers, were following me. And some of them would eventually, after following a number of my videos, finally dared to speak, but their intention was malicious. They were thinking that because I'm attacking and exposing the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, that therefore they could prey upon me to join their religion. Similar to ex-FOMO Nevermos wanting me to join their cult groups, which I did the video. Cult in and of itself is harmless. It's been vilified in more modern times. Changing of definitions is white supremacist Christian nationalist tactic to deceive. And normally you see it with teenagers who do that kind of changing. They're the ones that are the more easily susceptible to radicalization. And so yeah, even on my mission in New York, I saw that as the adults, especially the mothers, since many of the fathers are not around, were the ones who kept the teenagers in line, because we as missionaries were good Christian examples for their children, their boys, even their daughters. And they wished that their children would be more inclined to Jesus rather than gang mentality of stealing, murdering, and such, raping. So yeah, we were protected as missionaries. I was anyway. Other missionaries weren't. I remember McFarland and I had a dinner appointment with Otar down in the South Bronx, and we stayed out later than we should have. And so, you know, we're the ones responsible if anything were to happen to us in the South Bronx in the middle of the night. But, yeah, wow, Altar, he really knows how to cook. He's a kleptomaniac, but he knows how to cook. And so we were leaving, walking home, because we didn't have bikes. We had to pay for the bike fleet that we would never use. Thanks a lot, Culford. I was living off of 25-cent Debbie brownies, one per day. Only if I were able to find 25 cents by walking around. Lost 50 pounds below my normal weight. And so a taxi just happened to be driving by in the South Bronx late at night. And McFarland flagged him down, and he stopped for us, obviously, and chewed us out. What the hell are you two white boys doing out here in the South Bronx in the middle of the night? And McFarland, whether or not he only had $5 or not, I don't know. It's a tactic that you use for bargaining. We're in a vulnerable position, and he says, I have $5. Can you get us to the northern Bronx? And he tried to get 20 out of us, and McFarland, I only have the 5. And so, yeah, the guy felt guilty. I can't just leave. Went 2 white guys in the South Bronx in the middle of the night. But, well, there are some good people out there. But when you get caught up with the wrong crowd, and you get caught up in mob mentality, you just lose all sense of your mind. You don't even think of the consequences of what you're doing. You don't care that who you're abusing may actually be innocent. The Christian especially, to know that the church is evil, but then victimize me, and then abuse me further by saying that I should go to a Christian psycho. I've been exposing psychos this whole time. Psychos in Utah are getting locked up in prison, and yet still people are using that to attack me with. They don't see that they themselves have become victims of the abuse of psychology. Not just with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but in your life. Who are you voting for? Is it Trump? Is it Harris? Doesn't matter. Psychologists are the ones who told you to vote for them. Psychologists are working both false dichotomies, and to weaponize the separate groups against each other. And this is a diversionary tactic for Trump. Because as the Democrats are giving false hope to their followers, thinking all is well in Zion now that Harris is running for president, Trump is already plotting the bloodbath. He leaks like a sieve. You got to pay close attention to what he talks about in his rallies, what he talks about in his tweets, because he keeps his promises. That's the thing that's throwing everybody off, because everybody just says, well, that's just political speak. They make promises they don't intend to keep. We already had 4 years of Trump, which were illegitimate, but 4 years nonetheless. We know he keeps his promises. He's talking about a mass exodus when he wins. And so we know who the mass exodus will include. And yet there are still blacks for Trump, there are women for Trump, there are LGBTQ for Trump, there are the homeless for Trump, there are those who are colored for Trump, of other nationalities, ethnic groups, other religions for Trump. All of them know the first 4 years of Trump. And yet, apparently they've got amnesia. Any of you Mormons live near Mia Love? Yeah, she's gone into hiding, hasn't she? So you'll only see her at church now. Trump called out her ancestral home as a third world bleep hole country, and she shut her mouth and stayed loyal to him. And then came the election, and she was out, and Trump would go on to say, Mia Love showed me no love. The devil never supports his own. You all know this. Mia Love is now in great jeopardy if Trump wins. Doesn't matter if she's a citizen. She's black. Trump is a racist. She's going to be part of the mass deportation. But he's fooling people, I guess, into thinking, well, it's only the DACA, it's only the immigrants, and you don't get it. He's got Stephen Miller at his side, whispering in both ears as the devils. He's a neo-Nazi. Council for National Policy has neo-Nazis, it has KKK, it has Russians. Russians in that secret combination that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is a part of to overthrow this government. But I'm the one who's showing the potential for, becoming a serial killer. I can't help you when you're dying. You refuse to listen.